High-level AI Workbench, UI, Workbench server, managed container, topology in less than 3 minutes. So on a Windows and Mac, let's start with the Windows machine. You install an AI Workbench user interface. That's what you download. When the AI Workbench user interface decides it's time to install something on your Mac, or actually you go and really install it, it actually installs a WSL Linux instance because all the AI Workbench UI tools are Linux-based. That way they only have one set of tools to QA across cloud and desktop. So they install a Workbench WSL Linux just for themselves, and they install the AI Workbench server in that, which is super easy to install. You can do that on any Linux system that is the right version of Ubuntu with the right stuff on it. When you spin up a project inside the UI, you're like, man, I want to look at this UI and I'm going to spin up this project. That actually tells the AI Workbench server to tell Docker or whatever container system you've got. I'm going to say Docker, but I mean any container system that it supports. That'll actually spin up the Workbench project. Workbench project could actually spin off extra project containers, and it could do that directly. It could do it through Docker Compose. On Windows, Workbench WSL instance, and the fact that you've got WSL container support. On the Mac, it's a little simpler because it already can run the Linux tools. So the AI Workbench UI on the Mac basically installs the Workbench server as part of it. If you're going to run it local, if you don't actually connect local, it doesn't need to do that. And then the AI Workbench server deploys the project container and runs the initial project container, and then that may ripple into having extra containers either directly spun off or through Docker Compose. So that's actually how the Windows and the Mac. The other piece of this is the Linux servers itself that are remote, or if you're a Linux user directly. If you're a Linux user directly, it smells a lot like the Mac. But if you're using Linux servers, basically what happens is you got to go out to one of those Linux boxes, install the AI Workbench server, kind of like Visual Studio Code does when it's remote. And that will actually let any UI that can connect to that Workbench server over SSH, then can use that server to spin up Workbench project containers, and those containers can then spin up subcontainers if they're required or run Docker Compose. If you're a Linux UI user, then it looks a lot like the Mac. Like I said, you install AI Workbench UI. You don't need to install the UI if you're not going to run the UI on a server. So in the cloud, like if you're in Brev or AWS or Azure, or I don't remember them all, then you would probably just install the server out there. So that's it. That's what Windows looks like, what the Mac looks like, kind of the server architecture and how it manages containers. And that was under 3 minutes. Have a great day.